Good morning, students of meteorology. It's a great privilege this morning to interview one of the leading broadcast meteorologists in the field, James Spann from Channel 2633 up in Birmingham, Alabama. I selected James because he pioneered the concept of wall-to-wall broadcasting during tornado outbreaks to give it more attention to save lives. He's a great innovator and communicator in keeping the public safe during these tornado outbreaks. And he's also very much involved in community outreach, an outspoken Christian. And for all those reasons, I am going to see if I can patch into James here and split my screen. And there he is. Good morning, James.
Green wall and all.
Yeah, he's normally used to having great graphics behind him.
We're just going raw today. This is the raw thing, the real deal. This is what you see is what you get back here.
Well, you look good. That's not an issue. So I happen to have the privilege of reading your biography, James Spann, Weathering Life. Highly recommended if you are interested in weather and interested in broadcasting. And you had a childhood where you had a lot of interest in broadcasting at first, and you really wasn't clued in like most of us into meteorology. So tell me how you got into it.
Well, I'm one of these kids that have loved weather ever since I can remember. I'm from the deep south, and summer days we get these big storms in the afternoon, and I just loved them. All the other kids couldn't stand them, but I thought they were just outstanding. But the bottom line is, I'm a child of the 1970s, and we had some unbelievably extreme weather year after year after year in terms of severe local convective storms. And I lived through that. And those experiences hooked me into this. But I was never told that meteorology was a viable career option by any guidance counselor or any advisor. And so I just figured, well, maybe I can be a volunteer storm spotter or something, but I'll have to go work in some other career. So my first major in college was electrical engineering. But while I was doing that, I worked my way through college at a small radio station. This is in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and played rock and roll music on the radio. That's a very odd way to make a living, but it was great fun. And a local TV station called, and they heard some of the things I did during those big tornado events back in the 70s, and they asked me if I'd be willing to come out and do weather on their television station. I'm thinking, you're going to pay me to talk about weather, and that's all I talk about is weather. And they said yes. So I said, okay. I think I was making maybe $2 an hour, but I didn't care. I mean, goodness, I probably would have paid them. And so soon after that, I realized that meteorology was a viable career option. And so thankfully, that was about the time Mississippi State started the science program and got it all that finished there. And I've been doing this for 42 years, never looked back.
That's wonderful. What's been the most exciting or rewarding aspect of your job?
Well, obviously, what keeps you motivated is the fact that we can be a part of a process that mitigates the loss of human life. And that's kind of many people in jobs can say that, but we can. And again, we're just a part of this wheel that includes the Weather Service, other private sector meteorologists, emergency managers. But to be a part of that is really remarkable. So, in where I am, I'm down here in the southern United States, and we're obviously part of the tornado maximum that's in the deep south. We have one over the plain, one here in the deep south. And I've been through a lot of tornado outbreaks in my life. In the fact that we have the ability to reach people, and initially just on television, but now you reach people across all these platforms, traditional television, radio, and the digital and social side, to reach them with a crucial message that can bring them to action that will save their life. That's the most rewarding part of this. There's no doubt about that.
That's neat. What part has been the most challenging? Has it been the public exposure, the occasional criticism, the long hours?
Well, I think that probably the most challenging part is the lack of sleep. I'm during the week, I sleep about 3 hours a night, and that's not healthy. In fact, I tell people I'm only 29 years old. This is what you look like when you never sleep. So get some rest. But the deal is today, most people don't get weather on television; they get it on the phone, and these phones never turn off, never. And so people are constantly there asking questions and engaging with me, and they expect an answer, whether it's 3 in the afternoon or 3 o'clock in the morning. So to live in this new world, you just don't sleep much. So in the morning, I do a shift here in my home studio, which I'm at the home studio now. And under normal times, I'd be speaking somewhere every day. I do science programs in schools, speak to groups about weather, come into work. I work the 2 to 11 shift at the TV station, get home. I have to answer more questions. I'll go to bed about 3, or I'm sorry, go to bed about 1 and get up around 4. So that's about 3 hours of sleep a night. So that's a challenge. I'll shoot straight with you. I get pretty fatigued by the end of the week. Um, and the criticism, that's part of the deal. I mean, if you're going to do this publicly, and really everybody does, even if you go to work for a National Weather Service forecast office, they've got Facebook and Twitter accounts that have thousands and thousands of followers. Everybody's public now, but you're going to take a lot of brutal criticism, just brutal. I've been told that I should have been aborted by a coat hanger. This is the world we live in. And so you have to know how to process that, know how to deal with that, and put that in a compartment. And as old as I am, you can't hurt my feelings because I have no feelings left to hurt. But younger people have to deal with that. And the other thing, you're going to have forecast problems. You're very public. And when you mess up a forecast, especially a snow or a high impact forecast, people are going to come after you. And we deserve that criticism. And that's the one thing you have to do. You have to be able to parse the trolls and the haters from the constructive criticism. Without that constructive criticism, we won't get better. So, yeah, it's just all part of the job. And so you have to have kind of a thick skin and the ability to sleep very little to do what I do. And unfortunately, I've lost your audio, David. I cannot hear
Okay, is that
you.
better?
There we go.
Okay. What role has your faith played in your career?
Well, the backstory on me. My dad abandoned me and my mom when I was 7. I have no brothers and no sisters. Probably everybody watching this, they got 9 brothers and 10 sisters. I have a small family, and my dad just left. And so our family of 3 became a family of 2. He never paid a dime of child support. We were broke. And I had to go to work at a really young age. And that's the one secret about me that people will figure out with time. I'm really not that good at what I do, but I will work harder than anybody else to accomplish a goal. And I'm thankful for that work ethic I learned during that horrible time in my life. But we would move away from my hometown, a small town in South Alabama, to Tuscaloosa when I started 5th grade. And there were some wonderful people that loved us and encouraged us and helped us. 2 strangers in a strange land, me and my mom. And through my mom and some other people, I accepted Christ at the age of 12. And so I've been a Christian for a pretty long time. And initially, I didn't understand the concept of why we were left here. And I think that's something we all have to ask ourselves. Why are we here? God could take us to heaven on a chariot of fire if he chooses to do that, like Elijah, but he chooses to leave us here. And I think that the main reason for that is that we're here to help other people, ministry work. And so I use this job as a ministry to help other people. And life gets really good when you figure out that it's not about us. And look, I was very self-centered as a young Christian. But as you get older, you learn that life is not about being self-centered. It's about being God-centered. And when you're God-centered, you put others before yourself, the needs of others before your own needs. And so by being able to be a servant in this job, and this is what this job is, you are in a servant position. You can get in there and really help people. You can hold their hand during a hurricane or a severe thunderstorm event or a tornado or a flood, and help them get through it and give them practical advice on what they need to do to keep safe. And it sounds kind of corny, but we are in a position to save some lives, to be part of that process. So that's awesome. I think that's, for some reason, I believe I was born to be in front of a green wall, and especially on a day like April 27th, 2011. That was a day in which we had a generational tornado outbreak here. And, I look back on that day. Anybody can watch that on YouTube. You can watch our coverage. History will judge us for what we did right, for what we did wrong. But it was just a day where I think everything in my life led up to that day to give me the ability to help people. And it was rough. I'll tell you now, it was pretty rough. On that day, we had 62 tornadoes in my state. And again, this is one day. And the death toll was 252. And that is inexcusable for anybody in the weather enterprise or the public. These were precious people that died. And for about 30 of them, they heard the warning, they did the right thing, and it was just their day to be taken. But for 222 of those people, they ought to be here with us today. And these were people of all different races, demographics. Some lived in the city, some lived in the country. And we've got work to do. And the thing we learned that day is the fact that what we do is not enough. We do physical science. That's not enough. We're asking people to take action. So we need to integrate social science into what we do, take an interdisciplinary approach. And so the social scientists have been great helpers for us for the last 9 years.
Yeah, that's something that's really changed in meteorology since when we were young. Social science wasn't part of the equation back then, but there's been a tremendous number of studies on how you should communicate threats. So where do you see the most improvement in forecasting over the span of your career?
I think clearly it's with severe local convective storms. There are some things we don't do well. For example, today, we're doing this interview in July. I know for a fact we're going to have thunderstorms where we are this afternoon in 3, 4, 5 hours from now. I have no earthly idea where they will initiate and where they will be. And so you say we're going to have scattered storms this afternoon. The chance of any one spot getting wet is 30%. That doesn't help anybody that's trying to plan a picnic or an outing at a certain time. So air mass storms in the summer, it's a great weakness. Winter storms for us down here at these latitudes, we're brutal. We're not that good. You can have a crippling ice storm on one side of the city, a cold rain on the other side, and we really struggle with that. And part of that is lack of analogs and lack of experience. Doesn't happen that much, but those are our weaknesses. I think the strengths, it is with severe local convective storms. And part of that, it's part of the attribution to that. Number one, it's research, the amazing researchers that have really stepped in to work with us practitioners over the years. The Vortex projects, Vortex Southeast, which is going on right now. Their research has paid off. We've taken what they've learned and applied that. The social science, the technology, goodness gracious, the dual polarization radar. When that thing came online, nobody knew what to expect. Nobody. We understood the products, we knew the concept, but we didn't know if it was going to be practical. Who knew? Correlation coefficient would ultimately be a way where you can confirm a tornado and that you can see non-hydrometeors and debris being lofted. So between the research and the technology, we've done pretty well. We can handle those things, but we've got a lot of work to do. The one thing I learned in my old age is how much we don't know, and there's a lot.
Right. Now, that's one area where our text is weak because it's a little dated, and that is the upgrade to the dual polarization radars. It produces a product where you can see the debris ball, which is exact confirmation that you do have a tornado. And if you watch any of the recent videos that are out of tornado outbreaks, you'll see them mention this particular product. So I'm glad you brought that up, James. Okay, what are the most important preparedness tips that you can give, say, a day before a possible tornado outbreak?
Let me tell you some of the things we've learned from social science. Let me go back to April 27, 2011, the generational tornado outbreak. These things happen once every 40 years, but this can be applied to a day where there's just one tornado in the whole state. On that day, the warnings could not have been better. The physical science, we couldn't do any better. In some cases, you had a lead time of 40 minutes on a tornado. That's unheard of. The average lead time is about 12 minutes. And again, it wasn't that hard. People say, wasn't it hard working those storms on that day? No, because, boy, they all had the classic hooks, and you had the classic velocity couplets. And this was before duopole. And then we had the cameras, and we had drier supercells where you could see these things, which is very odd for where we are. So, but all these people died. So this is what we've learned from social science. The number one reason people died, April 27, 2011, it's siren dependency. And I don't know why that's the case. We live in a country where people just love these outdoor sirens, and they honestly believe that they're going to hear some magical outdoor siren, which, by the way, is World War I technology before a tornado. And that's killed more people than anything else in my watch on that day and over the years. And yeah, you might hear one on a sunny day at 3 in the afternoon, but what about during a raging storm at 4 a.m.? It's not going to wake your family up. It won't. And we know many people died April 27, 2011, honestly thinking they were going to hear a siren before a tornado. And that mentality, the siren mentality, killed them. So the number one thing is you got to get away from that. I'm so mad. I want to climb up on these poles, take them down, and burn them. That way you know that you won't hear them. But they serve a purpose. They reach a limited number of people outside. But we have to do a better job of educating people. So the number one thing is getting the warning, and that's the baseline is a weather radio. Yeah, it's a good graphic. I like that. Every house has to have a NOAA weather radio. It's stale technology, yes, but man, it works. It's still county-based. It's not storm-based, but boy, they work and they'll wake you up. And then beyond that, be sure that, wireless emergency alerts are enabled on your phone. Every phone sold in the United States has it, WIA. And a lot of people turn it off. They don't like Amber Alerts, which doesn't make any sense. I mean, come on, have a heart. If a child is missing, don't you want to help? But be sure that those are turned on. So getting the warning is the big deal. And then number two, understanding warnings. We've not issued warnings by counties for years. We use geometric shapes called polygons because a tornado is not going to affect an entire county. It's not. And you don't need to warn an entire county. So we warn small parts of counties, and we use polygons. And so that saying came as a result of the lack of knowledge of how it works. Respect the polygon. Respect the polygon. If you're in that thing, you got to do something. And if you're not, don't worry about it. But there is a very specific reason those polygons are drawn up the way they are. So if you're in it, you do something. So when there's a warning, just check to see if you're in or out. And if you're in that polygon, you do something. And the other big thing I could say is most people, we think, know where they're going. They know that if there's a tornado coming, you got to be in a smaller room, like a closet or a bathroom or a hall, near the center, lowest floor, no windows. You don't have to be underground. But this is what we didn't do a good job of. We did a horrible job of this, is reminding people of what else you need to do in that safe place. And the main thing, it's helmets. We believe that over 50 people would be alive today from April 27, 2011, with a simple bicycle helmet, a cheap $5 bicycle helmet from Walmart. And this is for adults, and too, not just kids, but adults. So everybody in that tornado safe place got to have a helmet on. Bicycle helmet, batting helmet, if you have somebody that plays sports, motorcycle helmet, because most people that die, they die from blunt force trauma wounds to the skull region. So those are just some practical things we've learned along the way from our friends over in social science, because my challenge to them, I want to know why everybody died and what we can do to be better. And that's some of the stuff we've learned.
Right. I think one of the challenges you face is that people love to see the funnel and your sky cams. I love the way that you have gone throughout the state, put cameras on many of the higher places, sent out teams to chase the storms. I think it really gives validation, but at the same time, too many people run to the front door and open the screen porch, take a look and see if there's anything, see if they can hear anything, when they probably ought to be heading down the basement stairs if they got a basement.
You make a great point here, David. We know from social science studies that people will seek confirmation when they receive a tornado warning. That's human nature. It is. If you get a tornado warning, you're going to want to peek out the window and see if that thing's coming. You want to be able to see it. So in the television business, we've all got radar. I mean, you got radar on your phone. Everybody watching this, you got radar on your phone, which is an unbelievable science advance. That's great. But we've learned that most people, when they look at radar, they see a bucket of spill paint. We can show them a TDS, a tornado debris signature. These are non-hydrometeors. parts of buildings, boards, bricks, glass, nails, parts of trees being lofted up to 5, 10, 15,000 feet. That's a tornado. It's there. But they see that little blue spot, that lowering of the CC, the correlation coefficient. A bunch of mumbo jumbo. We can show them a velocity couplet in radial velocity. We can show them a hook with reflectivity in a debris ball. They don't do anything. But if you can show them a live video stream of a tornado, they're getting down to that safe place like that. And so that's the reason it's important for us to make the investment in cameras. We're putting them as many as we can all over the state. And beyond that, to put the dash cams in all the station vehicles. So during long form coverage, you can take those cameras live as well. You know, I could put out 2,000 cameras. That's not enough. They can't be everywhere. But with the mobile, dash cams, that's a big help as well. But you're right.
Yeah.
Being able to show tornadoes is a big deal.
Yeah, it is. At the same time, when something comes up in their area, I think the prudent thing to do is not to be the YouTube star, but to hit the shelter. It's kind of funny. The joke I've heard in the weather circles, as most of my students know, I went to Penn State undergraduate. A lot of the leading research in tornado meteorology has come out of OU, Oklahoma. And the joke is that when the tornado warning goes up, the Oklahoma graduate goes to the car and goes out to chase the thing with his instruments and camera gear. And the Penn State meteorologist goes, "Oh my God, how can we help warn people?" Goes back to the office, figures out how to craft an emergency statement. But I don't know if you've heard that, but that's an interesting little ditty. So moving on from the severe warning situation to classroom visits. You love to do that. What do you think, from a teacher's perspective, what can they do best to prepare for a visit from a broadcast meteorologist?
Well, here's the deal with me. If I had to do this for a living, I'd be teaching third grade science. Those are my people. I would be a horrible college professor. I would not be good in high school or middle school. But man, those third graders, we bond. They think I'm funny, and I can teach them stuff that's middle school level. I love teaching that age. But when I'm doing these science programs, and I do it every day during normal times, but now we're doing Zooms. In fact, when I'm through with this, we're going to do a big statewide Zoom with high school kids all over the state. But number one, I just like to get them excited about science. I really do. Some people did that for me when I was young, and I think I should return the favor. And when I go in, I do meteorology pretty much. We talk about, number one, the television business for a few minutes, but I've never taken a class in television. I know nothing about it. I've been doing it for 42 years, but that's not my background. But then we'll get into weather forecasting, weather instruments. We'll get into clouds, upper air stuff. Kids love balloon launches. I mean, to me, that's the most fun part of the day. If you're working a shift at the Weather Service, you get to go out there and launch the balloon. Although you got to be careful now, because most offices use hydrogen, which is awfully flammable. But that, you show them the balloon launches, early in the morning, early in the evening. You show them radar, satellite, how this whole stuff works, and how to interpret radar. Third graders are good, and they look at their parents' phones and they see this stuff. And then you get into the sexy stuff. They love thunderstorms, and they will eat it up. And before you know it, your 50 minutes is up and you got to go. And then at the end, I'll give one of the kids my phone, let him wave, and get him on television that night. Gets everybody excited. But that's a win-win-win for everybody. And people say, why do you do that? Because listen, I know a lot of TV meteorologists or people that want to get in this. They think, well, I'm going to work the night shift. I'm going to get some really big hair and my teeth white and some nice clothes, and I'm going to be looking good, and I'm going to work a few hours and make a big pile of money, and that's it. It doesn't work that way. I mean, again, you have to have a servant's heart to do this job successfully, and part of that is putting back into the community that you serve, and you've got to take that midday break you've got and go do that. So I'm in a school every day, and those kids will learn who you are. They might not watch you on television, but they might follow you on Instagram. some of these social platforms, and their parents kind of latch on to you. And after years and years of this, you develop this multi-generational, large, loyal following that will listen to you and respond when there's dangerous weather. So it's all good.
One last question for students who finish this course and they're interested in furthering their education in weather in a, let's say, non-highly technical meteorology major capacity. Maybe they're aviators, maybe they want to get into the broadcast field, maybe they're educators. What options exist for them?
Yeah, let me just say, if you're going to get into meteorology, please understand that this broadcast stuff is a little fraction of the science. There are so many opportunities away from television. And the one thing about television, it's changing like a meteor streaking through the night. What I have done for all these years will not exist in its current form in probably 10 years. The people that are watching traditional television newscasts are getting older and older, and they won't be around much longer. And when that generation is gone, the new generation will not consume news, weather, sports like the other generations. It's going to be radically different. But I'm very positive. I think it's going to be better. What your generation invents will be much better than what mine has been delivering over the past 40 years in my career. So I think there are great opportunities out there. But forget media for a while. You go to work for the Weather Service and people think, well, I don't want to be a communicator. I'm just going to go to work for the National Weather Service. Well, let me just remind you that that's changed. Like we've talked about before, every Weather Service office has social media pages. And in some cases, they've got 100,000 followers. So you are a mass communicator. You're reaching just as many people working for the Weather Service that I would probably reach on television here. So you've got to have some communication skill in whatever part of this you go into. But understand, you don't have to be a practitioner. You don't have to do what we do. You can take it deeper. Again, researchers, I can't tell you what they've meant to me. Some of the greatest heroes for me in this science, a guy named Chuck Doswell. Reading Chuck's research over the years, he's taught me basically everything I know about severe local convective storms. And I met Chuck and I was so intimidated, but now we're good friends. And I still love him to this day. People like a Harold Brooks at NSSL, people like a Jeff Craven. I could give you all these names, but you can go into research. That's absolutely crucial to what we do. And in terms of research, it doesn't necessarily have to be about severe local convective storms. You don't have to work at NSSL. You could work for a major college or university in research. You could go to work in the tropical side, National Hurricane Center, either the forecaster or doing research on that side. So research is a big part of this. And here's another idea too. And of course, private sector, goodness, there's so many jobs. You could work for a big airline. You can do forensic meteorology where you're coming in and working with legal teams. But the one thing I've seen a lot of people do, they're starting to come out of meteorology and they're taking another track after they graduate in emergency management. And I've seen now a lot of young people come out of college with degrees in meteorology and emergency management. Some colleges offer that, and they go into emergency management. That's a crucial leg in we call it the integrated warning team, IWT, of getting the word out. So there's all kind of opportunities. So don't think you have to be in front of a green wall doing television. You don't.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you so much for your time this morning. Really appreciate you coming by, stopping by, adding some practical experience to the students' collegiate, academic end in the area of tornadoes and severe thunderstorms. Blessings to you, James. Really appreciate your work.
My pleasure, David. Thank you so much, and appreciate all the folks watching this. And if I can help anybody, let me know. Y'all have a great day.